Welcome friends, today in my first video lecture I shall discuss about some ionic properties of covalent bonds in organic compound. We all know that a covalent bond between two non-identical atoms actually are not purely covalent because they shows partially some ionic characters. So now I shall discuss the factors which are responsible behind these partial ionic characters formed in the covalent bond. And these effects are actually inductive effect, electromeric effect, resonance and hyperconjugation. So let's start discussing these effects one by one. So first there comes inductive effect. Actually inductive effect is the outcome of electronegativity, because from the electronegativity concept we all know that the compound having greater electronegativity pulls the bonded pair of electrons towards each other. Let's suppose take a compound CH3Cl. We all know that the bond formed between the carbon and the chlorine is actually a covalent bond, because both atoms are sharing their electrons to form these bonds. But actually what happens, since chlorine has greater electronegativity than carbon, so the shared bonded pairs of electrons are pulled towards this direction, and due to this effect there are some partially negative charge is generated over this chlorine, because the bonded pairs are now pulled towards the chlorine, so the chlorine atoms is now in the vicinity of this bonded pairs, so a partially negative charge is actually generated over chlorine. So, and on the other hand, similarly a partially positive charge is also generated on the carbon compound, since this electron pair is pulled apart from this carbon, and this effect is actually called inductive effect. Let's make this discussion a very broad approach. If I take this compound, then what we shall see that there is a bond formed between carbon and chlorine, but we all know that chlorine has the greater electronegativity, so it will pull the bonded shared pair of electron towards this chlorine atom. So, and a partially negative charge is generated. On the other hand, a partially positive charge is also generated on the on the first carbon. Similarly, this bonded pair of the electron is also towards this direction, since chlorine is attached in this direction, so the bonded pair will shift towards this carbon, and it will result in the forming of a partially positive charge. But this partially positive charge is actually less than for first carbon, because this pull of the bonded share of electron is actually less extent as compared to the first carbon. Again, if we consider this bond, then we also see that these shared pair of electrons are also pulled towards this carbon due to the electronegativity of chlorine. Therefore, a partially positive charge is also generated on third compound. So now we can say that this partially positive charge on this compound is actually less than this, and which in turn is less than this positive charge. So this is actually the inductive effect. Actually this is the outcome of the electronegativity concept. Now we can broadly categorize the inductive effect into two parts, that is plus I effect and minus I effect. So what is plus I effect and what is minus I effect? So if I again consider this compound, that is CH3Cl, we all know that this bonded pair of electron is actually pulled towards the direction of chlorine due to the greater electronegativity of chlorine. On the other hand, I can also include that this bonded pair of electrons is actually repelled by this carbon, and so it is pulled apart from this carbon. Therefore, the partially positive charge is generated. So this power of the this power of repelling the electron pair is actually called the plus I effect. That is, this carbon is showing this plus I effect. And what is minus I effect? If I again consider this compound, that is CH3Cl, so you all know that from the concept of electronegativity, that this bonded shared pair of electron is actually pulled towards chlorine, and a partially negative charge is generated over chlorine. So this power of pulling the electron pairs towards itself is actually termed as minus I effect. So this is the actually cause of inductive effect, which is much more important in organic chemistry. Now let's discuss the second effect, that is electromeric effect. In the previous case, we have seen that this actually electronegativity effect is a permanent effect. Since the electronegativity is a permanent phenomenon, so therefore we may conclude that this pulling or pushing the bonded pair of electrons is actually a permanent effect. But now we are discussing a temporary effect, that is electromeric effect, because this effect is shown when we are using an external source, but this effect is removed when the external source is removed. So if I give an example, let's take a carbonyl compound this, and if I use a nucleophile, that is Cn minus, then what happens, that this pi bond is actually shifted on this carbon atom. Therefore a positive carbocation is formed. On the other hand, there is a negative charge, that is an anion form on this oxygen atom. Now if I attack this Cn minus nucleophile, then it will attack towards this direction, and actually this is formed. So this is the electromeric effect, and here the pi electron bond is actually shifted towards this atom. Actually this is a temporary effect. Now, like the inductive effect, we may categorize this electromeric effect into two parts. That is, if I take this example, then what we can see, that at first this pi bond is shifted towards this direction, then it is attacking to this nucleophile. So this actually what is happening, that this compound is formed. Now what we see, that this shifting of the pi electron and the attacking of the external source is occurring in the same direction. So this term is effect. The effect is actually termed as plus E effect. And similarly, like the previous example, if I take this example and attack this compound with Cn minus, then it is seen that this pi electron is shifted towards oxygen atom, but this Cn minus is attacking on this carbon atom. So in this case, the approach of this nucleophile is actually opposite direction towards the shifting of the pi electron direction. Therefore this effect is termed as minus E effect. In this video we have already discussed with the two effects, that is inductive effect and electromeric effect, which are held responsible for the ionic character in the covalent bonds. But in the next video we shall discuss the other two effects, that is resonance and hyperconjugation effect. So take care, goodbye, and see you in the next video.